Thank you for joining the Nonprofit Learning Lab's online webinar. You are currently participating in how nonprofits are using the $10,000 a month Google Ad Grant to thrive despite adversity. Grant is the CEO of Nonprofit Megaphone, which helps 300 plus nonprofits maximize the value of the Google Ad Grant, one of the first agencies to be certified by Google. Nonprofit Megaphone is the #1 manager of Google Ad accounts in the world. I will now hand it over to you, Grant.
Thanks so much, and thanks to everyone for joining us. Really excited to jump in because nonprofits have been doing a lot with the ad grant, especially during COVID, as people have been oftentimes needing to reach their audience through new channels and often digital channels. So lots of fun stuff to share here. And as mentioned, feel free to put questions in throughout. We'll have a time to go through all of those at the end. And again, my name is Grant. My entire life is devoted to the Google Ad Grant, as you can see by my name even being Grant. So we're going to kick it off here with a question. I'd love to get a sense of who we have in the room virtually with us today. So we'll have a poll. How familiar are you with the Google Ad Grant? Feel free to just pick whichever option feels right. Okay, perfect. So we have a pretty even distribution, actually. The majority is not very familiar, but we have pretty equally distributed throughout. Okay, and so then our second question is your organization, your nonprofit, using the Google Grant right now? And if so, for how long, or are you not using it at all? Okay, perfect. So 51% have never used it, 28% just have used it for some time, 13% just getting started, and 8% have used it in the past but don't actively use it today. So perfect. So thanks so much for giving us that context. That'll help shape what we chat through here. So for the 51% that have never used it, I'm going to give a really quick overview of what the Google Ad Grant is and how it can help your organization. And as background, the program has been around for quite a long time. I think it's over 15 years old now, and it was created to help nonprofits reach their audiences through Google search. And the way it works is that nonprofits apply for the grant, which we'll talk about in a second. And once they're approved, they're given $10,000 a month of credit to spend on ads in Google search. So we'll show some examples of what that looks like. The big goal of the program, and we actually do surveys. Every couple of years, we do surveys where we ask nonprofits, have you heard of the Google Ad Grant and are you using it? 75% of the organizations we survey, this has stayed pretty consistent over the years, are either not using the ad grant or have not heard of it, which kind of matches our experience here in the poll just a moment ago. And it's interesting, in recent years, we've started surveying people who we've looked at their websites and we've said to ourselves, these organizations would be perfect for the ad grant and they would get a huge amount of value out of it. And then we specifically survey those folks, and it's still the same. It's about 3/4 are not using the ad grant or have not heard of it. So it's this massive untapped resource that offers really a lot of value for lots of nonprofits. So I'll give a few quick examples of what this looks like and how it works in practice. So you can see on the screen here, this is a classic Google results page. This is from a search I actually did a few weeks ago. And I typed in to the search bar, do I have COPD? And as background, COPD is a group of respiratory ailments which are sort of interesting to study, and we won't get into that, but we serve an organization called COPD Foundation. They're one of our clients. And so someone searching this in Google is exactly the right audience that this nonprofit wants to reach. This is a person who maybe is starting to see some symptoms and they're trying to figure out where they should go next and what they should be thinking about. And this nonprofit, the COPD Foundation, has a free screener tool that people can use on their website where you just click through a couple questions and it gives you a sense of, is this something that you need to think about? Is this potentially what's going on for you? And what the Google Ad Grant allows us to do, you'll see here with this big green arrow, this is the ad that's appearing that, in this case, we wrote for this nonprofit that's tied to this keyword, do I have COPD, and other keywords. And when people click on this ad, it takes them to the COPD Foundation's website and directly to that screener page. and people can take the screener and they can sort of take the next steps in caring for their health and knowing what resources are out there. As a result of specifically the ad grant, hundreds of people are taking this screening assessment each month. And some of those people are learning potentially life-changing information. So it kind of gives you a sense of the power of this is how the Google Ad Grant allows you to reach your exact audience in their exact moment of most interest. Had you shown a Facebook ad to, any of these people that search COPD, many of them probably would not have clicked on it because they weren't thinking about that in the moment. They weren't thinking about respiratory issues in the moment. But at this moment, the second someone types in this keyword, do I have COPD? That is the highest moment of their attention, and you want to be in the Google search to reach them right as they're doing that. So that's one example. Another example, which I include here to illustrate another feature of the ad grant, is you can actually use it to promote multiple websites if your organization owns them. Another of our clients is called Rotary International. You've probably heard of them. They're in over 100 countries. Their main website is rotary.org, and we have lots of ads running for rotary.org, but they also have another site, endpolio.org, which is a big part of their mission and work. They've really focused as an organization on helping in the fight to eradicate polio. And so you can use additional websites that you might have, and you can write ads specifically for those websites and reach people that are searching for that specific information. So that's another example. And then one third final example here, just to share how you can use the ad grant to respond to current events. And periodically there are items of national news. We've had plenty of them over the last number of months, which lead to huge increases in search volume for specific topics. This is one that happened a year or two ago now. Many of you remember that former President George H.W. Bush passed away a year or so ago, and what some people noticed and what was in some of the news broadcasts at the time was that there was a service dog who was with him for some of his last days, and that service dog's name was Sully. And so lots of people started searching, because Sully was, adorable and incredible and so forth. They started searching for service dog Sully. One of our clients, America's Vet Dogs, was the organization that trained Sully. And so they capitalized on this really intelligently by creating a page all about Sully the service dog. And we were then able to put ads that appeared right at the top of the Google search, as you can see here, above, Wikipedia, above CNN. And this led to hundreds and hundreds of new visitors coming to their website. It led to lots of volunteer requests and actually lots of speaking requests for the organization to come speak at different venues, and was enormously helpful. So this is one of the things that the Google Ad Grant makes organizations a little bit more agile. If something happens in the world that your organization is connected to, you can sort of really quickly reach a lot of people that are now searching for that. Additionally, we're what's called Google Ad Grant certified professionals, which lets us, we chat with Google all the time, and they sometimes have additional budget that's granted to organizations that are dealing with topically, like time-sensitive topics. So, for example, in the wake of all of the focus on racial equity and racial justice in the United States, and frankly globally, Google has responded by giving a number of organizations that are dealing with those issues and helping create positive change in those areas. It's given them additional budget. And I don't have the example here, but there's an organization that we work with called UNCF, which helps raise scholarship dollars for people attending HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges and universities. And Google is investing more in them. So their ad grant is $10,000 a month, as is everyone else's. But for the next 60 days, they've given them a big multiple of that, lots and lots more money to use to reach people. And that has been great, because the keywords and the search volumes for these terms have spiked, which has let them reach thousands and thousands of more people, and in their case actually generate thousands and thousands of additional dollars in donations as well, which is not always the outcome, but is a great outcome to see. So those are just three sort of quick examples of how the Google Ad Grant can be used and is being used in the real world. We'll take a quick second to chat through eligibility, just for the 51% or so that don't currently have it. There are a lot of myths out there about the Google grant, and one of which is that, my organization may not be eligible. The eligibility requirements, if you're a nonprofit in the United States, are you have to be a 501c3, and you can't be a hospital, you can't be a school, and you can't be a government agency. And if you are a 501c3 and you're not one of those three groups, you are eligible. And I'm happy to, if you have a weird edge case, I'm happy to chat with you and see if you might be, even if you think you might fall into one of those groups, but the vast majority of nonprofits are eligible, and it's a great resource. So that's a quick PSA for everyone. Additionally, and this is a chart on acquiring the Google Ad Grant. We won't talk about this in detail because a lot of this information is available online, and I actually have a PDF which you'll be able to download at the end of this that has this chart and lots of other helpful info at the end. So we won't talk about it too much, but basically the thing that you should know about the ad grant acquisition process is that everyone who applies, who's eligible and does it the right way will get approved. It sometimes takes some effort. There's a lot of steps in the process, and some of them, take some digging around and tweaking things and finding things. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. We've helped hundreds of organizations get the grant, and we have 100% success rate, and as will you if you apply. So the big things to keep in mind for this are it happens, the Google Ad Grant is applied for from within Google for Nonprofits, which is just at google.com/nonprofits. Many nonprofits already have a Google for Nonprofits account if they use G Suite for their organizational emails. So if when you're emailing people with your work email address and you're in kind of a Gmail type interface, you probably are in G Suite, which means your organization probably already has Google for Nonprofits, which is great. If you don't have it, it's a free account and pretty straightforward to get, but if you do, that's just another step up. And happy to chat with anyone after if they have specific questions about the acquisition process, but we'll keep rolling for now. So a couple more examples. We've shared some examples already about ways that the ad grant can help, and I'll just add a few more to the mix. So one obvious one is driving awareness. If you have a service that you provide to a community that maybe word hasn't fully got out that it's available, this is a great way to reach people who are literally searching for that exact thing in the moment that they're thinking about it. It's also very helpful for advocacy-oriented organizations if you're trying to reach people who and maybe change their mind about a certain topic or provide new information about a certain topic. This is a great way to do it because when people ask questions and type them into the Google search related to that topic, you can show up right at the top and link to a piece of information on your website that maybe shares your perspective. Another thing, and we'll talk about donations with the ad grant. People typically think like, I want to, get the Google Ad Grant and I just want to get a bunch of donations right away. That is typically more difficult, just to, give you full transparency. Very few people, unfortunately, when they fire up Google, very few of them type in, I have too much money and I need to get rid of it, sadly. We've been trying to find more of those people, but have not been successful so far. But what they are going to search for is things related to your organization. They're going to come to your website. They're going to learn more about you, hopefully start to build a relationship, maybe sign up for an email newsletter, and over time, hopefully become excited about donating. So that's just a quick word on donations, but there are other ways to have the grant help drive revenue for you. And one of them is selling tickets. We have a number of symphony clients, performing arts clients in general, who use the Google grant very effectively, museums, aquariums, zoos, and so forth. It can be a very effective method of selling tickets, which is a great way to drive revenue. Sharing thought leadership, we chatted about this a little bit in terms of advocacy, but if you have a perspective or you have information, research, this is a great way to get the word out about that thought leadership. Events and event venue spaces can often be promoted effectively on the Google grant, especially if you have a pretty wide geographic area that you can target. We have a botanic garden client in Indiana, which uses the Google grant to promote not only events in their space, but also, and this has taken a bit of a hit recently with COVID, but using their space as an event space or as a wedding venue, which is a great way for them to drive revenue as well. There are some types of things where people are directly Googling and they want to make donations, and one of those areas is donations in kind. There's a Habitat for Humanity Restore in North Carolina that we work with that uses the grant to reach people when they search for like donate my refrigerator or get rid of my refrigerator. They have free pickup. They'll come, they'll pick up the refrigerator or the microwave or whatever it is, and they'll actually clean it up and sell it in their resale store, which generates revenue for them. So that's a really creative approach. And then attracting visitors. We've talked about this already, but aquariums, zoos, museums, this can be a great way to reach people who are looking for activities or things to do with their kids, or they're visiting a city and they want to learn what they should be doing, and they're often going to Google for that. So these are just a few examples for us that hopefully give a sense of the breadth of the different things that can be accomplished with the ad grant, and it's really just sort of limited only by your imagination and by your website content, which we'll talk about in a second. But I want to take a quick step back and chat through the structure of Google Ads accounts so that you sort of understand how it all works, and whether you're managing it yourself or you have someone like an agency helping you manage it, you at least want to make sure that you understand the overall structure. So within the Google Ads account, the highest level organizing block is called a campaign. And within a campaign, there are multiple what we would call ad groups. And within ad groups, there's more stuff, and we'll get to that in a second. But in the example that we'll walk through here, we are going to assume that your organization is a humane society and that people can come to you to adopt animals. In this case, we'll just say cats and dogs. So you would almost definitely have a campaign in the Google Ad Grant that would be focused around adopting animals. And you might have other campaigns. Maybe you have a campaign about, just your brand name. If people are specifically looking for you, you might have a campaign about, humane societies near me and sort of general phrases like that. But you definitely have an adoption campaign as well. And within the adoption campaign, you would have different ad groups. And to make it really easy here, we just have two ad groups to start: adopt dogs and adopt cats. And then within each ad group, you'll have keywords, which might look like this. And then you'll also have ads, which we'll represent with these rectangles here. And what you'll notice about this is that it's very important with the ad grant to structure your ad groups and your keywords and your ads so that there's a really tight correspondence between them. One of the things that we find, especially when we're sort of jumping into a new account for a client that's maybe been managing themselves or hasn't had the time to invest in it, we'll sometimes see, there's like one campaign and just a ton of keywords all in that one campaign or in that one ad group. Oftentimes this wouldn't be split up. Maybe there's an adoption campaign and there are keywords for both adopting cats and adopting dogs all in that same campaign. And the reason that that's suboptimal is that if someone is searching the phrase cats to adopt, they're looking for something very specific, and that is a cat. And if we show them an ad that says, adoptable dogs, or even adoptable dogs and cats, there's this like brief moment of indecision where someone sees that, like adoptable dogs, and who knows, they might have already like scrolled down, or their eyes might have already gone on to the next thing. And so you want to have as tight a correspondence as possible between what the keyword is that someone searched and what the ad is that they're seeing. So ads 3 and 4 in this example, they're going to be all about adopting cats. They're not going to mention dogs, they're not going to mention horses, they're not going to mention anything other than cats. And same for the dogs. And what this does is it increases the percentage of people who, when they see your ad, they click on it. And the technical term for that is called click-through rate. And you'll sometimes see it abbreviated as CTR. And the reason this is so important is because, one, it means that more people are coming to your website when they see your ads, and that's always a good thing. But two, the Google Ad Grant actually has compliance rules that you need to follow to maintain your participation in the program. And one of those rules is you have to maintain at least a 5% click-through rate, which actually takes some work. And so you want to make sure your ads are really relevant and really tightly tied to your keywords. Now, as your account sort of evolves and grows, you will have more campaigns in your account, and you'll also especially have more ad groups. So this might be a younger account example here. We have 3 campaigns. Each campaign has at least 3 ad groups, or has 3 ad groups in this case, and it's probably doing fine. More mature accounts start looking like this, and we have clients that we've been with for years, and they have hundreds of ad groups, literally, and they're all targeting really specific keywords with really targeted ads to reach people in exactly the right way. And this obviously takes a decent amount of work. It's pretty time intensive, but it also is enormously helpful, because every time someone searches for something related to what you do, you're going to hit them right on the head with the exact right answer for whatever it is that they're searching for. So this is just a quick synopsis of account structure. We are now going to jump into another quick poll question about website readiness and open up that discussion. So if you had to guess, how ready is your website to make the Google grant successful? Okay, good. So we have a pretty good variation here. 23% very ready, 42 somewhat ready, 23 not very ready, 11% I'm not sure. And this is pretty typical. So thanks to everyone for your honesty. The thing that we need to think about when we're talking about website readiness for the Google Ad Grant is who's your audience and what are they thinking about? So if we go back to our Humane Society example, if someone is in your city and they're thinking about adopting a cat or a dog or something like that, they're probably thinking questions like this. So is adopting a dog expensive? How long does the process take? I wonder if there are any animal shelters nearby. What do I need to do in advance to prepare? All these types of questions. And the reason that your website content matters is that if we take this question in the upper left here, is adopting a dog expensive? If someone Googles cost to adopt a dog or something like that, and you have an ad that shows because you use that keyword, and then it just takes the person to your homepage for your Humane Society, Google is smart enough to know that you did not answer the question and that the content that someone received when they clicked on the ad was not extremely relevant to what they searched for. And as a result, Google's actually going to suppress your ad, and it's not going to show it as often. You're not going to reach as many people because Google doesn't want to give the searcher a bad experience of clicking on an ad and not having their question answered. And so the big thing that you have to think about as you build out your website is making sure that you have a page on your website that addresses each of these main questions that your audience might be thinking about and asking. So if you had a blog post, let's say, that was about the affordable cost of adopting a dog, that would be a perfect landing page to use for this ad. And then what you can do is you can essentially create ads with keywords related to each of these phrases that go specifically to that landing page. And so if we think about the example back here, where we have lots of campaigns and lots of ad groups, these ad groups are all probably going to dozens of different landing pages. And whatever it is that people are looking for, they're landing in exactly the right place to get that question answered. And that's why website content is so important, because if you don't have that content, then you aren't necessarily going to be able to show your ads as much because Google will be able to tell. So this is sort of a quick chat on why your website content matters, and we'll talk through how you can assess whether or not you have good website content. And the biggest question to ask is, how many promotable pages does your website have? And there are 4 characteristics that we've identified for what makes a page quote unquote promotable. And in a perfect world, the pages that you're promoting would have each of these characteristics. So the first thing is a single topic. A lot of times we see nonprofit websites where maybe you have 4 programs that your organization offers, and there's just one programs page and it lists them all: program 1, program 2, program 3, program 4. If someone is really interested in program 3, let's say, and they search for, program 3 near me, and you have that as keyword, so an ad shows, someone clicks on the ad, they get taken to your programs page. Immediately what they're going to see is actually program 1, because that's at the top. And then if they scroll a little bit, they'll see program 2. And then if they keep scrolling, they will finally see program 3. And the problem is that many people, if not most people, have already hit the back button at that point. because they didn't immediately find what they're looking for, and they're like, oh, I guess this isn't it. I'll go back and I'll click on the next link. So that's why it's so important to have a single topic. The next component is having significant content in terms of how many words are on the page. Google uses this sort of as a proxy to understand how robust your website content is on this page and how likely it is to answer the searcher's question. And this actually flies in the face of a lot of advice you'll hear from sort of brand or marketing oriented agencies and folks, where it's all about let's simplify, let's make it easier. And that is really important. There's a role for that. If you're making a brochure, it's probably good to just have a captivating image and 3 words on it. Unfortunately, that does not work as well for the ad grant, because when people are searching for things in Google, they're typically looking for information, and it's hard to sort of fully answer what someone's looking for with just a few words. And Google knows that, and so that's one of the factors they look at with your landing page. The next component is a subject that people are searching for, and oftentimes a great home for this type of content would either be on pages related to your programs or on your blog. And when we look at nonprofit blogs, there's often content that someone would not necessarily be searching for. So unfortunately, very few people are looking for like, how did XYZ organization's latest fundraising event go? No one is searching for that, but they are searching for the types of questions that we saw before, information about the programs that you have, information about the types of areas that you work in, and so forth. And there are lots of tools out there that can help you understand what types of things people are searching for. Google Trends is one. There's a tool called Answer the Public, and I can share more if anyone's interested. Those are both free. And then finally, it's very important that each page has a call to action of some kind of next step for people to take. And ideally something that's not like a huge lift. So someone landing on the page and then immediately the call to action is like, please donate. That makes sense some of the time, but some of the time it makes sense, a lot of the time it makes sense to do something else. So maybe signing up for an email list, watching a video, signing a petition, whatever that intermediate step might be. And what you can do if you're curious is we have a free website rubric tool. It's at nonprofitmegaphone.com/website-rubric. And I'll leave this slide up for just a moment in case anyone wants to write it down. It's also in the guide at the end that you can download as well. And this will just walk you through a set of questions that'll let you get a sense for how ready is your website. It'll hopefully give you a good kind of baseline and get that conversation started. So that's website readiness, really important part of the Google grant. I'm going to jump into a few quick frequently asked questions just to sort of address them. I suspect they'll come up in the Q&A anyway. Question number 1, do most nonprofits spend the full $10,000? And the answer to that is actually no. The average nonprofit with the Google grant only spends a few $100s, but that is typically because they sort of aren't maximizing it to its fullest potential. Our clients on average spend $3,000 or $4,000, which allows them to basically reach their full audience. If you're a local organization, let's say you only operate in one city, you may be able to reach everyone in your geography who searches for the things that you work on with $4,000, and that is in your case success. It's not really about how much you're spending of the grant. It's more about what are the actual results. And that's why the Google Ad Grants team and folks like us focus a lot on conversions versus spend. So not how much of the money are you spending, but when people get to your website, first, how many people are coming to your website through the ads? And then what are they doing once they get there? Are they watching videos? Are they filling out forms to request to be a volunteer? Are they signing up for events and so forth? And that's ultimately how the results should be measured. And as mentioned, for the majority of nonprofits, $10,000 is more than enough to reach everyone who could ever be searching for what you legitimately do. And so you can effectively view it as infinite. You have an unlimited budget to reach anyone you want through Google Ads. And that is a wonderful thing. Another quick question that we often get is what types of nonprofits are set up by default to benefit the most from the ad grant? And we serve a huge variety of nonprofits and a huge variety use the grant. So this is by no means restrictive, but there are 3 categories where if you fall into one of these, it is most likely a really big opportunity for you. So category number 1 is any organization that needs to reach a large audience. This could be for purposes of advocacy. This could be for purposes of education. It could be just because you're a national organization and you serve people nationally or internationally. The Google Ad Grant is a very cost-effective way, since the money is being given to you, to reach a lot of people. It can be a little bit harder if you're really, really small, like if you only work in, one neighborhood in a small town. It may be that that target is too small to have enough people searching to, legitimately make it worth the investment of time and resources. Now, this is not always the case. We talked about before the Botanical Garden in Indiana, relatively small, relatively rural, but they're trying to bring people for weddings nationally. And so that lets them advertise nationally. And now they are in category number 1 here. And here are just a few examples of what that might look like. The second characteristic would be any nonprofit whose revenue model benefits from increased exposure. So as discussed, if you're a zoo, if you are an aquarium, if you're a museum, if you're a theater, if you're a Habitat for Humanity Restore, if you're a YMCA, JCC, et cetera, any of these types of different organizations want more people to be knowing about them and thinking about them, because the natural byproduct of that will be, people coming and becoming members or visiting or buying tickets or whatever that might look like. And so these are some examples there. And the final thing is nonprofits that deal with topics that lots of people are searching for, even if it's not national, even if it's just local or so forth. And that's why we give the Humane Society example so often. There's an enormous number of people who are looking for animal organizations. We've done research on this. There are actually relatively fewer animal-related nonprofits in the country compared to other types of nonprofits. And there's a huge audience that wants to engage and support and participate in those types of organizations. So nearly every animal nonprofit does really well. So don't tell anyone, but it is the truth. So those are just some 3 big categories. Obviously, if you're not in one of these categories, you can still absolutely benefit. But these organizations have even more opportunity than most. Another quick resource for us, and then we'll jump into some questions, is this is a guide that we've created. It's the ultimate guide to the Google Ad Grant 2020 edition. It's available at this link, nonprofitmegaphone.com/guide. It'll take you right to the PDF. You don't have to put your email address into anything. It'll just be there and you can download it. So free resource for you if you'd like it. It contains a lot of the charts that you've seen in this presentation. And so feel free to pull that down if you'd like. I'll just leave this page up for just a second in case anyone needs to write that down. Again, just nonprofitmegaphone.com/guide.
All right, well, thank you, Grant.
Absolutely, thank you, everyone. So happy to be here and would love to do follow-up chats with everyone. Anyone that would like to, happy to be a resource however I can.
Thank you. This workshop has come to a close. All the materials and recordings will be available on our website. Thank you so much for participating in how nonprofits are using the $10,000 a month Google Ad Grant to thrive despite adversity. And again, thank you so much, Grant, for educating our community.
Thrilled to be here.